All right, welcome back to Daybreak. We didn't quite take a break because the conversation continued behind the scenes. And I'm still with Senator Mithika Linturi from Meru County, Honorable Caleb Kositanyi from Soy, Dr. Pamela Odhiambo from Migori, and Speaker Kagusha from Nyeri County. And we've been talking about the rule of law, the Nairobi situation, but now I want us to focus on what the President was speaking about yesterday. He spoke in Kikuyu, so we'll not be playing those clips, but I'll read you some of the slides of what he was speaking about in his interview with the vernacular stations. Do you have those that we can take a look at some of those? Right, and he spoke about that if their logic is to say that because my father was the president and I am the president today, then we are called dynasties. Then in equal measure, if your father was a doctor and you are a doctor, then you have no right to take care of patients. Well, that is not my issue anyway. And then another one that he also spoke about is BBI is not about fighting anyone or building anyone. I have no problem with anyone. I have promises to keep, and my promises are not with a particular person but with the people of Kenya. And that promise is twofold: delivering on projects, and that I will, without any question. Something else that he said, let me tell you, well, that moved a bit first. We just go to the next one. We've seen it, so we need to look at the other one. We'll look at some others as soon as we can, but I'm sure some of you have been reading the stories, and of course the front page of the Daily Nation and the Standard, you'll see it have called for Uhuru. Then on the Daily Nation, Uhuru files a Truto and keen to address concerns that he has been laid back and hands-off in the succession politics of the vote-rich Mount Kenya, leaving his deputy to roam free and building sizable support. President Kenyatta as the region to allow him to focus on his development agenda first. And let me begin with you, Speaker Kagushi, because you come from the region that you're talking about. I don't know what the reality is, because we keep being told that the ground is different and you need to understand it, and therefore letters have been written, statements have been said to the president, and now he's responding and telling people you need to see the truth. Which truth should we respect now, and what is the truth according to you?
Well, that's a difficult question. Yeah, first, you cut me short when I was disagreeing with my friend Kositanyi. On the other side, on the issue of the president addressing the Kikuyu vernacular radio stations, I really don't think that there should be any problem with that. And I think any leader can be able to address these radio stations because they are our radio stations. If today Raila Odinga did an address to Ramogi, for example, or if His Excellency the Deputy President, Dr. Ruto, did address CAS FM, in that language, I really don't think that should be a problem. Mm-hmm. And I think freedom of expression in even our native languages really should be encouraged. There's English is a borrowed language, is a Queen's language. So we should even be more proud of our languages. And so really, I don't think there should be any problem. In any case, even what the president was saying, it happens that I was also on another TV station yesterday in the morning. And so when the president was, and it was not a Kikuyu TV station, so when the president was addressing the Kikuyu vernacular radio stations, the same was being interpreted, and we were actually discussing it on this other side. Mm-hmm. So you can already see that whatever he was saying was being interpreted, and that I have also seen the Citizen TV has done the same. Yeah, so the issue of the ground, mambo ground in a different, mm-hmm. I think is much more of a new phrase that came after 2017 elections. And it's something that has been selling in our country. And generally this has been trying to communicate to the leaders that as you lead and as you sit in offices wherever you are, you kind of also need to understand what could also be happening on the ground. Mm-hmm. And I think has been a statement to try and espouse the different approaches or the difference in thinking in terms of people who are in the city and people who are seated in the offices versus the people who are on the ground.
Right.
Sometimes we as leaders, we may think that things are moving in the way we want. We may think that the moves we are making are likely to produce the same impact as we expected, but that does not always come that way. sometimes you may think if you probably do some road somewhere, the people in that village are going to celebrate. But for some reason, that doesn't seem always to be the case. So the question then would be, what is this that makes things different on the ground, whereas we as leaders seem to be doing the right things to the same ground? And I think that is what the president is working on.
Okay.
I think that is what he's trying to investigate. Why and how comes the people of Mount Kenya region do not seem to be speaking the same language as His Excellency the President would expect? How comes, for example, on matters BBI, as was expounded the other day by the majority whip in the Senate, why is it that the region that seems to be benefiting so much from the BBI doesn't seem to necessarily be speaking the same language, if what Kangata said is anything to go by? Why is it so? And I think really that could be what His Excellency the President will be trying to now connect with the ground and hopefully try to see if then what is up here can now correlate with what is happening down there, or maybe the moves that are being done here in the city and in the offices can now maybe influence what is happening on the ground. So I think from an analytical perspective, I think really that is what is happening.
Okay, there's another gentleman here from that region, but I'll get to him later. But first, Dr. Pamela Odhiambo, you may not have heard what he's saying, or maybe you heard but you didn't understand, but you're able to read the translations and what the papers are saying, including him talking about against those criticizing the cost of a referendum. He says that the people who put it at 14, at 2 billion, yet there's still more than 2 billion shillings. And people have been saying, I mean, like there's a viewer here, which I'll read the feedback later, saying that if the head of family is complaining, what are the subjects supposed to do? How do you take that admission or claim by the president that there are people that have been taking away 2 billion shillings on a daily basis, but now very perturbed with the cost of a referendum?
Well, first allow me to say this. I think sometimes on the issue of speaking in vernacular, I think sometimes Kenyans will become too jittery and oversensitive over nothing. It is important that we remember that before we spoke English or Kiswahili, we were born in a family and a community. And I think this English we speak here is very nice, but the truth is not every Kenyan really understand what we are saying in the right context and perspective. So I don't think the fact that the president decided to address his people whom he believes understand the Kikuyu language which he was speaking better, from the least to the greatest, on issues that are important to him is a sin per se. And I'm glad from the translations that I've seen and heard and read, I don't think he said anything that is going against any other person who did not understand the language. I think Kenyans, we need to be proud that we are Kenyans and we are blessed to speak all these many different languages. So long as we don't use them to insult any other person who does not understand them, I think it's okay. That is from a linguist point of view. Remember, I'm sitting here speaking Kijaluo, Kiswahili, English, and French, and a bit of Kikuyu and a bit of German. So I think language is basically for communication, and I think we should encourage us to communicate to our people in the language that they can best understand so that they are not misled. On the issue of that owning up and claims, I think what sections of Kenyans have been telling the president is that some of these issues, like what he was trying to address, the fact that people are busy going around giving very hefty figures as to going to be spent on the referendum, and yet he is acknowledging that there's some money that we have been losing. What my take here is, and I think is the take of many Kenyans, it is high time. Kenyans have spoken and spoken and spoken over and over again about issues of corruption and fraudulent use of public funds and resources. And I think what the president needs to do now, and what Kenyans are expecting, is not him to lament, but take stern action against the so-called perpetrators of whoever is losing those 2 billions. We don't need to lose any money in Kenya anymore. We need this money to develop our nation. We need this money to empower each and every one of our people, young and old. Our youth are crying out there. And we need to come up with initiatives and projects that can actually benefit the general population of Kenya. So, to my president, it is time to act. I think I'm on record in Citizen here one day. I said that Kenya has changed. And even on the issue of the ground, the other day I was saying, there is this book that I love reading, Who Has Moved My Cheese? The cheese in leadership has moved. The people we are leading now are not that ignorant. But again, there is a section that can still be easily misled because of poverty. So I think, one, the president had wanted to tell the Mount Kenya region the truth of what he is looking for in BBI. And number two, he was trying also to tell them the truth. And that truth, some of it will require a very blatant, decisive action, especially against the loss of the monies that he mentioned.
And Caleb Kositanyi, the president is quoted as saying, "Sell us your ideas, don't incite people." That man whose vehicle was torched the other day because of this dynasty story, how do you benefit from such incitement? What is important in leadership is to help people get out of poverty, but you cannot do that by inciting class war. So your camp has been accused of the dynasty versus hustler narrative as one that is inciting class war. There have been several statements, including from the chairperson of the National Cohesion and Integration Commission. He was on Citizen TV last night. He has said as much. What responsibility do you take, and how should Kenya be decoding these messages from your side as well as from the president that he spoke yesterday?
Well, first of all, Sam, I personally have issue with the president addressing the nation, or rather taking his time to address the Kikuyu community only, because when you are elected
to conduct an interview,
let me finish, Sam. I've just started. When you ascend to a position of presidency, you cede the tribal tag. And you see, why then would the president go and address in Kikuyu, and then we have all these translations? So what was the point? Why not just address in English so that we all or Swahili so that we all get it? So I think those who are advising the president are actually not advising him correctly, because I would not, in my position, I would not allow William Ruto, when he becomes president in 2022, to address say, I want to address the Kalenjins, or I'm going to call the Kalenjin MPs to Kapsabet or Eldoret, and I want to talk to Kalenjin MPs. I would not allow it. I would not even attend such a meeting, because I would want him to maintain the level of the father and the uniting figure of the country. So let me come to your point. The issue of this hustler dynasty narrative, I don't know why it is bothering people so much. And it is bothering those who have been clinging on to the tribal tag. You remember, I want to say that in 2002, when there was a general shift from the Rift Valley to ODM, and we were supporting Raila Odinga then, I think I was one of the few people who went to President Moi then and told him, Your Excellency, the ground has shifted. Things are not the same. Things are different on the ground. That term was not there yet. And President Moi at that time was really cross with me. He said, what do you mean? Why can't people listen to us as the leader? I told him, Your Excellency, the ground has shifted. I think we have now, the generation that we are dealing with, no longer look at anybody as a tribal leader. They want somebody who is full of action, who has an idea, who inspires their hope. And then they can see that with this kind of leadership, we will move. So the hustler narrative and the dynasty narrative should not bother people. And let us not try and say that so-and-so's vehicle was banned, because vehicles have been banned before. It is not the first, this vehicle that was not the first one to be banned. They have been banned before, even before this hustler narrative tag. What I want to tell...
aren't you afraid that might get worse?
It will not get worse. It will not get worse, Sam. And let us not try and demonize this tag, because it has gained traction. It has gained traction. It has given those people who have just been used as voting blocks and voting machines, they have hope. They have been told, you will be on the deciding table. You will decide how we will run this country. And that is what we want to inspire. I have an issue when the funeral of Honorable Musalia Mudavadi's mother was ongoing the other weekend. Every leader was speaking about hustlers and dynasties, and Raila Odinga stood up and he said Jomo Kenyatta and Oginga Odinga were hustlers, correct? Then he goes on and says hustlers ni takataka. Then you start wondering now. In the same meeting, within 3 or 5 minutes, somebody is saying his father and the former president were hustlers, and hustlers are takataka.
Maybe he's talking about the hustler narrative.
Yeah, so we really need to respect, and as we have said with the Hustler Nation, we really need to respect every hustle. And I've said this before, Sam.
Okay.
I've said this before, and I want this for the record. I am not a hustler. I was born in a privileged family whereby we had everything. So I'm not a hustler, but I'm in the Hustler Nation because I believe we need to do something right so that we can uplift the lives of those people who are living in hopelessness. So let us team up, let the other team, and I think the biggest problem, and I've said this before and let me say it again, the biggest problem we're having is that up to now, there's only one presidential candidate that is there on the line. His motto is the Hustler movement. Let this other team come up with their presidential candidate, whether it will be one against Ruto or 2, 3, 4. Let them come up so that we can have a competition.
I don't think it's true there's a presidential candidate, because you become a candidate after you've been nominated by C.
Well,
maybe they're just aspirants.
Prospective, let me say.
But you say, just a moment, Senator, I'll give you an opportunity. You say that you're not a hustler yourself, but you're in the Hustler Nation. Is it therefore fair to have this narrative of dynasty versus hustlers, because you would be taken to be a dynasty because you've come from a political family, a business family?
The reason why this has come up, Sam, is not because of the haves and have-nots. That is not the point. The issue is there seems to be a narrative being driven that unless you have been, your father was president, you don't deserve to be on this table. Look at who is discussing now that we have Raila Odinga, we have Gideon Moi, we have President Uhuru Kenyatta. Those are the people now deciding that it should not be that way. We've had issues that it should be either Kalonzo, it should be Mudavadi, it should be people who are sons of former key leaders in this country. William Ruto is a nobody. And let us not run away from this fact. All this is about William Ruto. You cannot discuss this issue.
How can you say he's a nobody? He's the deputy president.
Sam, let me add to what my good friend has said. You know, what I will not take is this story of trying to sell us fear about the dynasty and the hustler. I am one of the hustlers in this country. I have been one. Until when people wonder how, and the late Michoki one time asked me when I went to his office, you kijana, from where you are today, and may God rest his peace, him in peace, ulifika huku namna gani? Because I do not have a name. There is, my father gets to be known because of me. Those that we are discussing or talking about are known because of their fathers. So we come from different schools. And by the way,
but there is no mistake.
No mistake. And I want to remind people, those that probably can remember history, the issue about the dynasty and the hustler started with the J.M. Kariuki. J.M. Kariuki, remember when he was trying to criticize the philosophies or the policies of government of the creating 10 millionaires and 10 million beggars. That is what J.M. Kariuki came up with very many years ago. And he was trying to tell them, as you make policy, please make policies that to assist the less fortunate in society, and so that these people can really be proud of being part of a nation. So this history, this hustler, isn't just the wordings probably that have changed, but in terms of philosophy and in terms of looking at the things and interpreting it correctly, that is what it means. So let us be respected. Political tolerance is very important. Remember, we have a right to also express ourselves in a manner that can easily be understood. My child will not understand an Asylum because they are lucky that their father probably can be able to provide them 1 or 2 things. But when I left my father's home with that and Bob shillings, that shillings without shoes, and worked myself to where I am today, never. As anybody ever touched, I owned my hand to get me to propel me to political positions at I am. It's because of my hard work. Let's accept the hustlers and say, Linturi has as an opportunity. It should not be asked, you are not a Kenyatta, you are not a Moi, you are not an Odinga, you are not anybody. No. Give us the opportunity. Let us talk to the people. Because power is from the people, my friend. Because, you know, whether you are rich or poor, the person to decide who takes the leadership of this country is by way of a vote. So if I'm able to appeal to the common mwananchi, who is in terms of numbers, I'm able to resonate with him in terms of addressing his problems. So don't criminalize this thing, because a crime is a crime. I have not seen anything criminal. By application of the one Dasla versus Dynasty depends on how you want to use it. So if you feel offended because you've had all the niceties of the world and you are there, and you want us now to believe that we must always be kneeling down before you, right, to seek for favors when you should be doing what you are supposed to do to address issues that conform or that are within the office that you owned by way of the law, then please give us an opportunity to express ourselves.
All right, Senator, let's listen to what one William Ruto and team spoke about over the weekend about the Building Bridges initiative, but also what Raila Odinga spoke about the mission of one DP Ruto.
Sasa hii kazi ya kubadilisha katiba, na tafadhali tunaomba muharakishe ndio tuweze kurudi katika ile Big Four ambaye ingetoa nafasi zaidi ya milioni 3 kwa vijana wa Kenya.
Our friends from ODM tuambie wazi, amwezi kuepuka makosa ya kiuchumi ya Kenya kutoka 2018 mpaka saa hii, kwa sababu nyinyi mliingia ndani na mkasema serikali ya 2018 kwenda mbele ni ya Uhuru na Rao.
You cannot be pushing BBI on one hand, and on the other hand, you are telling us that we cannot go for more public debt and we can't tax Kenyans more.
Nyinyi wageni mliokaribishwa katika serikali ambayo sisi tuliunda, muwe wangwana, muwe wapole, musikuje na kisirani. Hapo mahali mmekaa, kaeni polepole. Na kama imekuwa ngumu, pia mnaweza kuondoka, lakini muondoke polepole. Hakuna haja ya kutupigia makelele.
Kwa hivyo tunasema ya mambo ya wilbaro kwenda huko Sugoi. Tunataka kupatia vijana wetu kazi wa maana, wamama kazi wa maana. Hiyo ndio kitu ambayo Uhuru Kenyatta na Raila Odinga wanataka kuachia wa Kenya.
Nilikuwa nasikia mtu ya kitandawili juzi anasema ati mkokoteni na wheelbarrow ni takataka. Mimi nataka nimwambie huyo jamaa, we nani, wacha madharau, wacha kiburi. Ati kwa sababu wewe ulizaliwa kama mtoto wa naibu wa rais, unadharau biashara ya watu wengine.
Speaker Kagusha, what do you take from that? Are we shall we be witnessing a class war like won by President Kenyatta because of all these statements from the political leaders?
Not really. I don't really expect class war on this. And probably I wouldn't want to comment so much on the Hustler Dynasty arrangement. But what I'm seeing happening is that we have political temperatures rising. And we have, as much as you're saying we do not have presidential candidates, we seem to have presidential candidates. It is clear from what I'm seeing that Raila Odinga is a presidential candidate, and His Excellency the Deputy President is also a candidate in 2022. And what they are doing is each one of them is defending their turf. And I think really what has happened is that I think DP Ruto has generally pulled the carpet under the feet of the other leaders. And so far, he seemed to have scored rather too much in terms of political penetration in the country. And really, I'm saying this from an analytical perspective. Again, you know, I'm a political analyst, and that's one of the things I do. And so you find that he seemed to have gone ahead. And I think Raila Odinga has generally been waiting for some kind of blessings to come from the outgoing president, or rather the president himself. I think he has been waiting for the blessings, and I think this is what he has been hoping to get, and to rely on probably the system to be able to make some political headway and maybe complete a process that he began a long time ago. But I think it's somehow dawning on him that may not necessarily work. And so he is not probably sitting pretty back now and waiting and hoping that things will somehow just add up. And that is why now you see when DP Ruto goes to Eastlands in Embakasi, after a week he also goes. And I'm now seeing what we have seen before in the political arena. And it's not surprising. We are in 2021. Yeah, but again, a lot of people are thinking that politics proper maybe would begin during the process of referendum campaigns or even after. But we seem to be treated, we seem like we're going to be treated to the political theatrics in a bigger scale than what we expected, and rather too soon.
All right, Speaker. Dr. Pamela, as we wind up,
Sam, I think I have a serious worry about this hustler dynasty thing. The truth is, we all acknowledge, like me, I came from a father and a mother who never even went to school. But now I am learned. My husband is learned. And we have children whom we have also been pushing through the university and go, you know. Now, when we are talking of terms, and a name has power, and psyching people using their own names is very important. When we talk of this term hustler, I want the nation of Kenya to understand, and the generation that we are targeting, the youth. A hustler is somebody who gets money or wealth fraudulently. And that is the meaning of this word, as St. Brodiel uses it. And this is what is worrying me about the whole thing. And so even my colleagues who are acknowledging that they are in the hustler nation because they themselves started from nowhere, their children who are now did start from somewhere, as they put it. What do the others think about them? And that's why, as grown-ups, as people who are looking into the future, and not just now and the 22, we need to be cautious.
Okay.
So I think what we are seeing ought to give us caution, because like the case that being cited, those burning of the vehicles in the Rift Valley, it is unfortunate that the youths who are burning were saying, finish the dynasty. So you see that kind of thing, it tells us what this has engraved in the minds of the young people. Leaving that aside, Sam, please don't interject.
No,
Allow me to speak.
I need to stop you because you are running out of time. And
yes. Let me just say something about what is happening. Okay. I'm concluding. I think what we need to do as leaders, let us be at least truthful to our people and to our youth. The whole BBI thing is not just about 2022. It is about uniting Kenya. It is about creating even more opportunities of those jobs for the youth. And one thing that somebody wants to insinuate, that it is the handshake between Raila Amolo Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta that has stalled the government plans and projects, if any. I think that is not right. Okay. It is a lie. The government has mechanisms, the ministries, they are allowed to carry out with the Big Four agenda. And I think the negotiation or the talk that has been about BBI and peace building and bringing Kenyans together by no way cannot be blamed for any financial crisis that Kenya has found itself.
All right, Dr. Pamela, unfortunately we've eaten into our time to conclude the show, but let's take a look at some of the feedback that has been coming through on Twitter via Citizen TV Kenya, the hashtag being daybreak. This is Blair Meditation. You say that I think we should be wary of these Nairobi MCAs. I am sure there is a force behind all this, and it has also taken over the courts, but the truth will prevail no matter the situation. He's talking about the situation with Nairobi. Rule of law is the bedrock to our democracy. Failure to uphold the rule of law by our leaders due to political competition is a great shame for Kenya. NB, to whom much is given, much will be required. Luke 12:48. Strong laws for the nation is what can make people equal, regardless of their financial status, race, or religious background. It is not wise to take advantage of our strong laws to undermine the executive, the power of the president's office. Engineer Zaro, then Jacob Abere, you say that Nairobi Governor Storm is a political question than law and governance. And Kananu taking reign in city CEO needs us to reflect on event after another, as was Anne was nominated before Sonko mauled from City Hall or after. Well, Then, Ben, you said that it is not healthy. It is a dangerous path that we have taken. Poor versus the rich is going to create a lot of hatred, and if we are not careful, we will have bloodshed. Let politics be without incitement. And this name is Ochauro. You said that if the head of the family is complaining that people are stealing from his home account daily, whom do we expect to help? And Kenyan systems are biased, corrupt, and they protect only the political mighty. That is, the citizens are left alone. And that's our time. I wish I could give you an opportunity, but we are out of time because Willis Raburu is up next after the break. My name is Sam Gituku. Thank you so much, Senator Mithika Linturi, Caleb Kositanyi from Soy, Dr. Pamela Odhiambo, and Speaker John Kagusha. Thank you for making time for us.